Before introducing Ryan, I'd like to well, I'm not even going to give a brief synopsis, but a brief intro to the movie, which was based on a novel by David Mitchell. Now, I don't have time to do either justice. The book was over 500 pages, and it tells 6 stories consecutively, but with overlapping themes and cross-references. The movie, directed by Tom Tykwer, right? Tykwer? Okay. Director of Run Lola Run, and Lana Wachowski and Andy Wachowski of the Matrix trilogy, took a different approach. Rather than tell the stories consecutively, in the film we see the stories happening simultaneously. So what is Cloud Atlas about? Well, I took the following from the film's website because it tells us better than I can. Cloud Atlas explores how actions and consequences of individual lives impact one another throughout the past, the present, and the future. Action, mystery, and romance weave dramatically through the story as one soul is shaped from a killer into a hero, and a single act of kindness ripples across centuries to inspire a revolution in the distant future. The 6 stories take place in different times and places, and the actors all had multiple roles and appeared, I think, in most of the stories. I don't know if all the major actors appeared in all the stories. That's maybe something you can tell us. This is a breathtaking, epic film of a book that most said was unfilmable, and I encourage all of you to see it if you can. So now on to Ryan. But before he gets up here, I just want to give his brief intro, his bio. He interns all over the world. His coffee fetching abilities are the stuff of legends. Seriously, he makes a mean cappuccino, and his lattes are a spiritual revelation. And I would like to experience that, Ryan. So, he interned on Cloud Atlas, and now he's in the process of directing a short film he wrote entitled Google Me Love. He has also videotaped and posted the videos of Waterline writers performing, and for that we are most grateful. Welcome, Ryan, to the other side of the camera.
Hey everybody. First I guess we've got the 6 stories here. If you want a brief overview, does that sound agreeable? Okay, I'm getting a couple nods, so we'll go ahead with that. The first story is set in 1849, and it's about the relationship between Adam Ewing, who's a young attorney in San Francisco, and Autua, who's an escaped slave, and the evil guy, Dr. Henry Goose, who is a doctor who was kicked out of aristocratic practice in London. And then the second story happens in 1936 in Britain, and it's a composer who's trying to compose a new great symphony, and he's kind of aided and then attacked by this other composer named Ayers, yeah. And sorry, I've got kind of like up in front of people brain, so things are going in and out. Then San Francisco in 1973, it's sort of the environmentalist story. It's a nuclear power issue, but nuclear power plant is going to blow up, but it's actually big oil. Lesson learned. It's always big oil. And then the fourth story is in modern day 2012. It's the story of a publisher named Timothy Cavendish, and he publishes this book by a guy, Dermot Hoggins, who's kind of a thug, and then Hoggins kills a guy, a critic actually. It's kind of morally ambiguous. And then he gets really big because he's the hero of the people and he killed the critic. And the book starts selling, and then financial troubles happen, and he gets into this sort of one flew over the cuckoo's nest situation. And it's pretty crazy, and that's the comedy of the stories. And then the fifth one is the big sci-fi epic with the story of a fabricant who's like clones, and her name is Sunmi 451, and she has to like escape from the basically fast food chain that she works at, and teach everybody that fabricants are people too. And that works into the last story, which is post-apocalyptic. And it's like after the world that Sunmi lived in totally fell apart because she told everybody that this is not working. And that story, she's actually now considered like a god, and they all sort of look to her teachings as guidance. And that story is about them trying to, the main character in that one is Zachary, and he's trying to find a way to escape the crazy cannibal tribes and get off world, because it's really terrible on Earth. And those are the 6 stories. And they do manage to actually come together, which is pretty crazy. So, if there's any questions.
Me.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Oh. I worked in the art department, which it's kind of a behind-the-scenes department. Literally, we make the scenery. The art department are the people who come up with what the spaceships look like, and they decide, what is the house that Adam Ewing lives in, and what does the boat look like, and what kind of varnish do they use on the boat to make it look. And so they do all that research, and they compile it, and then they draw the sets, and it's a bunch of architects and artists, art department, and then all the construction works under the art department as well, and you build all the sets, and I helped with every stage of that throughout. I was only an assistant, but I ended up helping build some sets. I helped on set, so I brought props around, Mr. Hanks, please move your arm. I have to put wood chips there. And I also helped, sort art, go through art. I had to make a little book cover at the end. So that's like my little piece in there. It's in the VFX shot. And you see a little scroll thing of all the different articles about something that Sunmi is looking through, and I wrote some of that copy. So it's like, oh, hey! If you paused it, maybe.
As a filmmaker yourself, it must have been a thrill being involved in such an epic, big-time movie. How did you feel?
It was unbelievable. And the movie itself is such a huge scale. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in school, they don't teach you about the art department, and they don't teach you about that aspect of it. And that's actually kind of the funny thing, is that you can tell a student film a lot of the times because there's no production design. All the sets look like, hey, we just shot this in my apartment. We went to the park, and that's the park. But, so that was cool, because it taught me a lot of the things that they do to, get around, like the simple paint jobs that you can do, and the simple color issues that people have, and why, you need this little outcropping in the set so that you can get the lights in there and still make it light, make it look like there's no place for the lights to be hidden. All those small things that make such a huge difference in a movie. And also the fact that it was just an unbelievably epic movie to put together. It's officially the largest independent movie ever made. There's all kinds of money in it from all over the world. So that's just an amazing thing to witness.
Wow.
So.
I have a question. So what was your background and how did you score that kind of job? No, seriously.
Nepotism. Yes.
Yeah. No, what was your background and how did you get the job?
My background, I went to the University of Iowa film program. I've done kind of film projects, I've done a little writing. And then I'm related Lana and Andy are my aunt and uncle. So
Who are your aunt and uncle?
Lana and Andy Wachowski, the directors. So
Oh, okay. Perfect.
that's why. Yeah.
So did they inspire you that your aunt and uncle to
Absolutely.
do what you're doing currently?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where, I mean, they showed me that I could do it. You know, especially it was a thing where, you know, a lot of kids want to be directors and want to be writers, and I would say my mom to help me with that very much. Especially in the writing part. That's all. That is 100% my number one editor. So, you know, they showed me that it was possible, and it could happen. And so if you work really hard and you actually give it 100%, a lot of people think that, oh, I'm going to go out and do it, and you know, they don't actually put their heart into the work, because then, you know, when it gets rejected and it doesn't work out, they can just say, oh, well, whatever, you know, yeah, so what? I didn't even try anyway. But if you actually try, and sometimes it hurts, then maybe you'll get it, and you'll get to do something really cool. So.
I have a sort of meta question. When you're designing, you know, you have this vision in your head. Do you think of it as your vision for material that you've been given? Do you consider the material? Do you consider the usability of the actors? Do you consider the directors? Do you consider the audience? Or are you trying to consider all of those things and amalgamate them in your head?
For like art department things, or like production design, or like for
Yeah,
like
when you're
props and things
designing,
like?
what is your vision? How is that process work?
Well, for when I'm writing, it's pretty off the wall, like just kind of bouncing ideas, and then you rewrite, and then you scrap it, and then you write it again, and then you scrap it. And that's one thing that making this movie right now has taught me, is you gotta rewrite a lot, and that's brutal. I'm on like draft 9, and I'm shooting tomorrow. Tomorrow is the big day, and I'm gonna do another draft tonight. Send it out for like Thursday, Friday shooting. So, yeah, and I think that's a big thing in the art department. It's always practicality, and then budget. Like, can you do it? Can it be shot? Can you do it in a reasonable way? And then it's like, well, can they act it? That's why you hire actors. I mean, they should be able to do it. So, and then it's your vision first.
Well, I'm glad we got the nepotism thing out in the open, because I didn't want to be the one to.
No worries.
You know, not everybody gets that kind of break, but I want to say that I have read your script, writing a script for his own film that he's shooting tomorrow. We were hoping that it would be finished in time to show it tonight. We will show it, if you let us, we will show it in the future whenever you are available to do that. But I just want to say that the script, I was kind of afraid when you sent me the script, because I was like, oh no, what if I...
What if it's really bad?
It was not really bad. It was very good. It was very sophisticated writing. I was kind of shocked, actually, because I don't know how old you are, but it's way too sophisticated for how old you are. But I just, you know, I don't know if it's a genetic thing, or if it's just you, or if you've learned a lot from your mom, from your aunt and uncle. But you know, he has an ear for dialogue. He's got the pacing. There's a vision in the whole piece. So Ryan, you know, nice job. I would love to see the film. So that's not really a question. But, like,
Yes.
I'll take it.
Did seeing how, like, the process of the filmmaking and seeing the people that you knew go through a lot of the struggles of filmmaking themselves, did that help you when you were working on your own film?
Absolutely. Because it's unbelievable. You have to really fight, and beyond that, you have to be prepared to work all the time. And if you think about it, everybody, like, a lot of people don't know how many hours you spend when you're actually shooting. It's a 12-hour day, but then generally it's a 14-hour day, and you get like 20 minutes for lunch, and you get 5-minute maybe breaks, and it's off and on, like, it's kind of like being in the Army. And then some days are 16 hours, no lunch. Like, you go straight through lunch and you have to eat on the run. And that's like crew. Those are the people that are like setting up the lights, you know, running the camera. And you know, that it's cool because they're all artists too, in a lot of ways. Because if the lights aren't all set up perfectly, and if the camera isn't running and focusing just right, then it doesn't look good. And it doesn't look like the movie you want it to be. And after all of those artists are done, then the directors are still there, and they have to watch it, make sure it looks good, and you know, so everybody leaves at 8, the directors leave at 11, and then they get there when everybody else gets there. So, and seeing Lon and Andy do that every day, you know, and still being happy to be there and not, you know, firing people willy-nilly and not, you know, shouting at anyone who didn't deserve it, which was not actually, that sounds like it happened a lot, but it actually happened like twice, you know, in 3 months of intense shooting. So, you know, seeing people use their authority in a way that made people respect them and want to be there, that's inspiring, and makes me want to do that, hopefully as well.
So in between fetching coffee for people, you're building sets, yeah? How much, do you have any leeway? I mean, is the set totally blueprinted? Can you move a book? Like, you know what I'm saying? Do you have any freedom to do something on your own?
Here's the cool thing, and sometimes very, like, it can be brutal mentally. Because when you're building a set, when I was building sets, we were on location in Mallorca, Spain, and it was hot, and it was beautiful, but it was hot every day, and we were, you know, raking, and we were, you know, digging holes, and then you put in all of the set pieces, and you set them all up, so it looks kind of pretty similar to the, like, piece of art that they gave you. Which is generally what you get on a lot of those, like, big location shoots. They won't give you, because they don't know how much space exactly they're going to get, and they don't know exactly what it's going to look like. They won't give you like an architectural diagram like the construction department will get, but you'll get like a big, like big digital painting, and then you have to go off of that, and then you set it all up, and you're like, oh, it looks beautiful, perfect. And then the production designer and the set decorator get there, and they're like, oh, move that there, move that there, move that there, no. And so it's like a Zen garden. And sometimes it's a Zen garden, and you're like, oh, wow, that looks so much better now. I'm so glad we moved it. And sometimes it's like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill, and you push it up to the top, and then they knock it back down. Your heart just breaks.
So is there a Ryan thing in the movie, like a book upside down or a painting, just, you know, nothing like that, huh?
There's small bits. Oh yeah, the totem, the whipping post, if you've seen the movie. I dug the hole. Here's the best part about digging that hole is we got in 25 centimeters, we had to get it in 50 centimeters deep to make sure that the totem would stand up straight. We get it in 25 centimeters. We hit solid bedrock. And the guy who was running the set, or he was running the setup for the set, he's this Texan dude, and he's like short, and he's the kind of guy that like makes everywhere that he is Texas. And he's like, all right, and he walks over, 100 feet back to base camp, and he grabs the prop pickaxes, and he hands me one, and he takes one, and we go at the bedrock for 4 hours straight. And we were just hauling out these rocks, solid rocks that were just 5 inches thick. And so I dug that hole. And I dug that hole. And we got it in. We actually had to hire a jackhammer on the last day because we were like only 30 centimeters in, and it was just too much. But yeah, that, and there's the set in Humdumville, the slums, in the future set. I did some of the graffiti that's in there, and I did a big piece, but it's actually not in the movie. But in one of the back alleys, there's a piece, and some smaller tags. So it's like small stuff like that you get on your first time.
Did you work with a team of people doing this?
Oh, all the setup?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a huge team of people. I was like one small cog in like like you see those lists of people at the end of a movie? Yeah, those are the guys. And they're all, like hard-working, like amazing people. So it's pretty crazy.
I want to ask about your current project. Can you tell us a little bit about what the plot is and what's going on? Can you?
I can. It's always harder to talk about your own stuff. Because now I'm like, I don't know. It's going to sound bad. It's called Google Me Love, and it's supposed to be about how relationships are different for people nowadays, or how it's harder to navigate. No, not harder. That's the wrong word. It's different because there's this kind of weird paranoia that everybody has now, where it's like, well, I'm with this person, and I know there's like 10,000 other people out there that I could be with. So it's partly about that, and it's partly about just love and finding love and dealing with it.
Finding among 10,000 people.
Did you pitch it to Halle Berry?
No.
Did you dream about it?
Maybe someday. Gotta earn that. You gotta earn that pitch. Maybe the third one in.
I was wondering if you'd talk for a minute about the entire arc of making your own project start to finish and being the guy on the spot for everything, because the Hollywood view of things from someone who's more just into watching movies often is like, okay, this guy, he's got this idea, he puts it together, and that starts when the actors come in, maybe with a little bit of script ahead of time, but I'm sure, just from talking to you a few times, that it's much more involved than that, and I'd like you to just trace the course of your project.
Cool. Well, I did a first draft back then the plan was to have a shot at the end of November, or mid-November, before Thanksgiving. We were going to do 6 days of shooting. And so I wrote it in July, August, got a first draft done, gave it to the execs, and scrapped the whole draft mostly. There's 2 parts in the movie that are the same from the first draft, and they're like about 6 pages total. and even those are still very widely different than they originally started. And then, you do another 2, 3 drafts, and finally, like 4th, 5th draft, it was workable. And it was like, okay, we can start setting it up. And so we had a producer, and she's awesome. Her name is Demetra. And Demetra knew who to talk to for locations and started talking to people to fill all the big positions behind the scenes. So, like the gaffer, the key grip, the guys who do the lighting, the guys who do the electric. And we had a director of photography, and we had a camera. So that was really lucky, because generally that costs a lot more money.
So wait, you didn't shoot this in your apartment and in the park? Your handheld camera?
Funny story, we will be shooting in a park. No, it's gonna be a nice, it's a nice camera. It's like, the way cameras work is they're kind of, lenses are kind of comparable to like cars, and then like cameras are like houses. So, getting a nice camera is a big deal. So it was we got really lucky, and we have a really nice camera.
Are you doing it local?
Yeah, I mean local
Chicago
people.
land?
Yeah, local actors. We did a local casting agency, got everybody in. All local people. A lot of them worked on like Shameless, which was shot here, and a lot of them worked on Underemployed, which I guess was another MTV show. So a lot of those people came together, and they all know each other. So it's funny because they'll be like, I know you from somewhere. Oh no, I did this and this. It's fun. But yeah, no, we're not flying. Yeah, we don't have the budget to fly anybody anywhere. Well, we have one girl who's actually like, I work with her on Cloud Atlas, and she's doing the costumes. So, she was a PA with me, so I was like, yeah, let's do it together. Bring each other up. But yeah.
Do you realize you just said we worked on Cloud Atlas together?
Yeah. Yeah. So she's very good.
Do you see yourself more as a writer or a director? What comes first for you, the story or the visuals?
Well, I think the interesting thing is that as a writer and director, a lot of the times there's very little distinction between the two, or one is always complementing the other. And that, like, I'm talking like yesterday, I was rehearsing with the 2 main actors, and we were doing this end scene, and the girl was like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's going quite right. There's like a little bit off, and I was like, okay, try this. Pitched a new line to her. She reads that instead of it, and so it's all about making sure that I get the performance I want, but they still say something that's like close to the words that I wrote, or sometimes it's even, and I kind of think it's a lot easier for me to have fun and to enjoy the experience if you kind of like let go a little bit of that. Like, you have to say the words that I wrote because I wrote them that way. And you let them become the characters, and sometimes that means, they're becoming the characters that you wrote, but it means that sometimes they'll add a little something in there. And you just have to say, oh, that's cool. Yeah, that is what they'd say. So, a lot of times I hope that the writer and the director are on the same team and are doing the same thing. So.
How about, and if this is too personal, you don't have to answer, do you ever, when you feel stuck, want to get a hold of your uncle and say, what do I do? How do I do this?
They've been really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're the execs that I mentioned earlier. So they're like, pitch them the script and then, yeah, try this. Which is, it's like 3 words, but it means like rewriting all 20 pages. So, Yeah.
One more question.
I want to commend you for getting your ego out of the way in order to do something like that too, because I mean, that's a huge level of maturity for you to have, you know, and I also want to say something about the nepotism, that nobody's going to put you out in front of anybody if you're a total schmo. You know, you're not Mr. Hanks is a big sentence, right? So, but what I was curious about is how, about your trajectory, just in terms of your development, having gone through a phenomenal experience. So I'm just, if you could just maybe sum up, what's the difference between the Ryan who went to the first day and showing up on this incredible project and who walked away from it when it was all completed?
I'm glad that was in. I learned a lot of humility, because I made a lot of coffees. And my boss was an Australian guy, and Australian people and English people kind of have this like thing. It's called cutting the tall poppies. So anytime you're too like, oh yeah, I did a great job all the time, they're like, shh, you did okay. You'll do better next time. So that taught me a lot. And I would say my drive is a lot stronger because you understand just the scope of how hard you have to work and how much harder it is than you thought you had to work and how much harder it is than any working you've ever done before.
What does story mean to you now?
Story. It's a lot more abstract. And I say that because in a lot of senses, I think my generation has a lot more abstract sense of story. And I think it'll eventually, like, the art that we create will reflect that. Because we watch much shorter stories. We're constantly watching them all the time. We don't read as much, which is weird. And it'll mean a lot for writers in the coming years. It's a lot more interconnected, which is a big catchphrase. It's like the word of the day. It means that all stories are trying to say something, and hopefully that is a unified thing more than we want to admit. They're all kind of speaking to the same experience, the human experience. And I would say that stories have also gotten smaller in a lot of ways too. There are a lot smaller stories that are just as big in scope. Because there were a lot of just small things that happened to me that seemed really big when they happened, but they weren't. And all of those little things taught me that it doesn't, it's not like necessarily just the big like, oh yeah, I worked on this movie. It's like, yeah, I was there when, the comet went by at 11 o'clock at night and everybody was out on set, and it was kind of this like big cathartic moment because there's the comet that's what all the characters have in the movie. And, everybody kind of had this big awe moment, and that's a story. So I think a lot of those things there we go. Yeah. I'm going to end that not so gracefully.